In order to join me in the pledge of the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. When we can call roll, please.
Vanderwater?
Here.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Tucker?
Here.
Ms. Dickman?
Here.
Mr. Dzinski?
Here.
Ms. Saban?
Here.
Mr. Sykes?
Here. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the November 19th town board meeting.
I'll move. Second.
Any corrections, changes, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 1 is a public hearing on amendment to the town's comprehensive plan relative regulation of solar energy systems. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing mode, waive the reading of the legal advertisement.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This was advertised for tonight at this point in time to hear comments for and against an amendment to the town's comprehensive plan. Kevin, you got anything to add to that?
Nope, not really. No, it's just for amending the comprehensive plan to address the issue.
Right, has been nothing in the comprehensive plan for solar, and we want to get it in there just to, so everybody understands it is a important part of the town and can be even more important, so.
Want me to just read
Yeah.
the proposed amendment?
Could I just have a copy? I'm sorry, I left mine in the car.
I have one copy that I'm about to read.
I don't have an extra.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
The town of Van Buren recognizes that solar energy is a clean, readily available, and renewable energy source. Development of solar energy systems offers an energy source that can prevent fossil fuel emissions, reduce the town's energy demands, and attract and promote green business development within the town. The town of Van Buren has determined that comprehensive regulations regarding the development of solar energy systems are necessary to protect the interests of the town, its residents, and businesses. The town desires to promote the effective and efficient use of solar energy systems, establish provisions for the placement, design, construction, operation, and removal of such systems in order to uphold the public health, safety, and welfare, and to ensure that such systems will not have a significant adverse impact on the aesthetic qualities and character of the town. It's a generalized statement, as indeed most statements in a comprehensive plan are. They give you the overall big picture, and then the details are worked out in the legislation that follows it.
Andy, if you can give the clerk your email address, we can send you one. Okay, with the reading of what we're focusing on here, anyone that's opposed to this amendment?
This is for the opt-out?
No, this is for the amendment to the comprehensive plan.
I'm sorry, I missed what the amendment was.
He just read it.
Well, that's the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan.
The amendment to the comprehensive plan, yes.
Oh, you're saying the whole thing's here. Okay. I have no statement about that.
The opt-out will be the
No.
next agenda item.
I have some questions about the comprehensive plan that I'd like to bring up.
Yeah, can you come up and use the mic so the TV can hear you as well as we all can hear you?
I am probably way over prepared.
Looks it.
I just would like it to be on record.
Give us your name, though, and address,
Oh,
please.
yeah, okay. My name is Peter David Wilder, and I live at 105 Highview Drive, which is in the town of Van Buren, off of Stiles. Okay. So I did a bit of research, and if nothing else, I'd like you to have these documents. I read every solar code in the county of Onondaga, and looked up every one of the permits used. I looked up the fee structure as best as I could determine for all of the solar permits. I looked up a specific interest of mine, the ground mount system for residential, small-scale ground mount system. I looked up what stipulations or comments. I looked up the maximum size allowed, which, by the way, 25 kilowatts is a healthy size. That's about twice the size of what I was planning on. And then I looked at whether or not the town had opted out. As far as I could determine from both the state website and the individual towns, 3 towns have opted out, a number of school districts, including Baldwinsville School District. Tully has opted out. Interestingly, they don't even require a permit, as far as I can tell. They merely require that they are authorized by the board so that the town is aware of their solar panel for opt-out purposes, so they can be assessed. So that specifically would address that. Why don't I give you these?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, I'd like to add this. The committee has worked on this we had to extend the moratorium.
Months.
We initially set 6 months. We extended that 3 months. So we're into that, what, 7th or 8th month now
Yes.
Yeah.
on working on this solar. So it's not like we just pulled stuff out of the air. It has been a lot of research done and such, so.
So, in general, what I'd like to say about the law, I did mention that the size is robust size for maximum size. One thing, the more restrictive within the code as written, it's 110% of last year's energy, which is acceptable if the term energy applies to all forms of energy, because the purpose of solar is to migrate off of your energy system to a free form. So there are calculators in the Department of Energy that allow for easy conversion between different types of energy. For instance, I want to heat my shop and studio, currently unheated, so it's possible the 110% might be a little bit pushed by that. So just be aware that that aspect of it could be somewhat restrictive for folks that are trying to move all their energy over to solar. The 25 kilowatts is not restrictive for any residential use that I can conceive of. One question about that section of the law that I had was that it's all based on your past 12 months of energy use, and given that one of the purposes of getting a comprehensive plan into place is that we can attract green businesses, I'm wondering if you need to include a section on how that panel array size would be determined, say for a new business that was just starting up, given that nothing is stipulated, it's all based on the last year's energy. So I don't know if you want to include in that section how that would be calculated for either a new business or a new home that wanted to start fresh, build a new home and have solar be their primary form. Like I said, for residential, I still think the 25 kilowatt is substantial. But I was just wondering if there was a spot there that there might be some confusion in the future, and maybe you wanted to clarify that for new businesses or new construction.
Now, you'd fall into that category if you're adding it to 2 of your structures that have no source now, right, of heat.
So the structure, I have an accessory structure now, and there's no heat in it. So I believe the solar panel that I have, that a company has given me a bid, an estimate for, I believe that panel will be large enough to heat that. So I'm not worried about my own situation with the panel that I'm looking at. I do think that if somebody was just starting out, and they would have to have some starting point, basically, in order to say we need an array that is 10 kilowatts or 20 kilowatts or whatever. So I don't know if you want to include that as for consideration.
Well, as typical in a lot of town codes, there's leeway given to the planning board.
Okay.
And they can always request a variance if they need to go larger
Okay.
than what we allow.
Okay.
That's typical in most town codes, so.
Okay.
There is mechanisms built into it that would allow those types of things.
Okay. So I'm not exactly sure where to go with further concerns that I have about the ground mount prohibitions in certain zones. And I would like to put a ground mount system because I have a substantial lot, especially since I'm in an R15, and my lot size is about twice the size of what you require for the rural or rural hamlet or R40. So my ambitious plan for tonight was to convince you to include those other zones under the rules of the R40, the rural hamlet, and so on, with the very clear stipulation that lot size has to be greater than 20,000 square feet. And I understand why people don't want ground mount systems in their neighbor's yard. I think that's, if it's shading the property or even if it's just a visual block.
There again, I think with a variance, am I right, Tony? He could come to your board and you could ask for a variance for those types
Okay.
of structures if you have the lot size, like you say.
Right, and I did come for a variance in October, and at that point, there was a legal technicality, which was pretty important, I suppose, which is I hadn't merged the two lots that we have, which was a residential lot with a residential lot next to it that is considerably
I
larger.
don't think we want to litigate
Yeah,
or
it's-
argue an
We're getting away
individual
from the
application.
comprehensive.
Okay, so
plan.
all I'm trying to say is I can do a presentation with GIS that would show you quite definitively how many lots would be affected by this in the town. And it's all of the lots that you don't want ground-based solar in. In other words, in that dense housing, all of those would remain excluded. So my idea coming here was to propose one zone to rule them all, as it were, to put the R10 and the R15, and it's really, if a trailer park wanted to have 20,000 square foot lots for every trailer, then I would even agree that they, as long as it met all the other setback needs and other things.
Okay, we're really not talking about the comprehensive plan.
Well, we are in the sense that if you want me
You're
to.
getting into details of the actual law, not the comprehensive plan, amending our plan to allow solar and want solar. That's what the purpose of this public hearing is, based on what the attorney read.
Okay.
So.
Well, I
you're talking
completely
about
agree that
specific details.
right, I completely
of law.
agree that we should have solar, we should support it, we should, that it's a green technology, that it would be attractive to business and so on. So I suppose I'll save my rather extensive paperwork that I have for a use variance in front of the ZBA, and hopefully things will go better than last time.
Now that you've joined the lots, it may very well.
Okay.
So you're in favor of amending the comprehensive plan?
I'm in favor of amending the comprehensive plan with the one stipulation of the size, and so I am in favor of that, yes.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else opposed? Andy?
Yes. Andrew Bowes, 116 Hunter Drive. Couple things. Thank you for listening to Pete. What his proposal ultimately may need a variance. It's a very small solar thing. It's not the industrial solar, which is what we're addressing. Industrial solar, Massachusetts is actually inundated with industrial solar. I don't have any paperwork to back it up, but the Massachusetts, their PSC is actually addressing farmlands being taken for solar with tariffs, and they're creating a tariff structure. And I realize that the town board is not in a position to put tariffs, but we can assess and how those assessments are promulgated. Now, I don't pretend to understand, but basically, Massachusetts, through national grid incentives, is inundated. and they have a 5-year backlog for large solar systems being installed on farmland. It's kind of what we're talking about here in this town. And I just wanted to throw that out because Massachusetts is ahead of New York State. New York State wants to follow them. That's the first one. That's about the industrial part. Now, the other thing that I didn't see, I read through it twice, but rather quickly. I don't pretend to know a lot, but I try to be involved. It does not seem that there's a good paradigm between large industrial and small ground-based arrays. A smaller ground-based array can be a microgrid. Now, microgrid is being deployed in California for fire departments, so they are hardened. When the power goes down, because we've all heard about the fires, they turn off the grid and everything else. A lot of these places for resources for emergencies and things like that, they have now gone to not just a generation, a power generator, gas generator, natural gas. They have a microgrid that's deployable, and it can be deployable very easily. This is a new burgeoning thing that's coming down the pipe. And what I don't see in this plan is that mid-range thing, which Pete's is kind of a little bit smaller than that. But say our fire department or our town, if we want to be a homeland resource in case of an emergency and the power is cut out, how does this plan allow for a small deployable array that could be set up in 3 weeks? So there's a range in kilowatts. That's all difficult math. I get it. It's hard. I'm a BTU guy. I know how many BTUs it takes to heat my house. So understanding electrical grid stuff is completely different. So I just wanted to, throw it out that there maybe something should be in the comprehensive plan about smaller ground-based arrays. And the fact that smaller units, you can come and get a variance, that's very important. Because as we go forward, the technology is going to change, and there's going to be a lot of different technologies. And it has to be clear that, yes, this is the overall enjoining law that we had to pass, but you get to come in and talk about it.
Yeah, it's hard to nail down every possible
Exactly.
scenario.
It's going to change. It changes every day of the week. Batteries, we don't have a Tesla roof. I didn't see Tesla roofs. The Tesla roof is the whole roof. Solar arrays were addressed in this code. Tesla roof is every shingle is a Tesla roof. I didn't see that addressed. Sorry, just to bring that one up. But because the technology is changing so quickly, I hope that we can work with that with the comprehensive plan.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Pete advised us before that this is going to be a fast-changing industry and that we've got to be open to changes. It's not something we're going to be able to put on the shelf and forget about for 10 years. It's going to have to keep the dust off it and keep it updated, so.
The town's done, it is a thorough job. The town's done a great job, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that's opposed? Okay, anyone that's in favor of the comprehensive plan amendment? Sir? Can you just give us your name and address?
Mark Farrell, 2655 Founders Road.
Okay. Thank you.
Pete raised his hand too.
Pete?
Yes, I would pay
Oh, all right.
amendments, yes.
Okay.
The update that's needed.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address the board during this public hearing on this issue? Amendment of the comprehensive plan?
I think we ought to support all the solar we can.
Okay, your name,
James Minna, 6900 Peck Road.
ma'am?
Kelly Rowe, 7491 Stakeford Boulevard. Just want to say I support it.
Okay. What was your last name again?
Rowe, R-O-E.
It's not just the saving emissions from carbon consumption, but it's also electronic emissions. Gas and power that we generate in our power plants is lost over the grid.
Mhm.
Like half of that.
Yep.
Well, that's gonna happen here.
When we generate everything very low, it supports the infrastructure and makes it less
Right.
flexible.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no others, entertain a motion to close the public hearing, go back to regular session.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is a public hearing on local law J, 2019, regulation of solar power and energy systems. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing mode and waive the reading of the legal notice.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now in public hearing mode again regarding the solar power and energy systems. This is the actual local law that has been worked on now for about 7.5 months, I believe it is. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this? Kevin, I'm sorry.
Mr. Supervisor, I did want to point out that we got back a report from the Onondaga County Planning Agency that basically took no position and said that we can proceed on our own basis, make our own decision. So I wanted to point that out. There's no comments really, or there's no modifications. They said that they will leave it up to the local municipality, and they did the same thing with the comprehensive plan amendment,
Right. Thank you.
leaving it up to the town.
Okay, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this local law?
Just a
Andy?
quick question. From a legality standpoint, all the statements previously made in the first part get entered into this part? Or do we
No,
have
it's
to
a
use-
separate public hearing. It's on a separate issue.
You'll have to say it all again.
You can just say ditto what I said in the last public hearing, I guess.
Just for the sake of the record, I appreciate everything the town board has done. Takes a lot of research, and this is an evolving thing, and I think it's very important, and I appreciate the town board's interest in promulgating local laws to assist businesses and people, industries in coming to our town to make these things happen. There's a lot of different things. There's electrical laws, the fire department laws. These are all going to be hard things to negotiate, and I appreciate the fact that the town board is open to understanding and trying to make it all work. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in favor?
How is this different from what we just said? What part of the law are we responding
When we enact a local law that is not covered in our comprehensive plan, we need something in there to address that in the comprehensive plan that, like he read that opening paragraph, that you know, we recognize all the benefits of it, but yet we still have to have some regulation control on it. You know, so,
I'll add what I had last time I spoke.
Okay.
Not 5-10 minutes ago, but when I came about a month ago.
And again, Peter Wilder, and 105 Highview Drive. And I'll, as Andy mentioned, I understand there's a lot of different tightropes that you're walking when it comes to this. We've got residential stuff, and homeowners want to save money. And if nothing else, solar is extremely economical when installed by a responsible contractor. And it does make the grid more resilient. What Mr. Minna was referring to about the generating power locally, one of the great benefits of this is that, in a sense, though it's a kind of poor analogy, electricity flows to its low spot, kind of like water. If it has to flow a very long distance, there's losses that occur from that. And so by having the grid locally, it actually makes the grid much, if solar is local, then it makes the grid more robust, and I'm in favor of that. I believe personally that it does a great benefit to the community, and recognizing you have all those different things going on. What I said about a month ago here was that I personally would hope that the town would have somebody, a retainer of some sort, who is an expert on these things, who they can consult, especially for these case-by-case things that are going to come up, because they are going to come up. Somebody's going to want to put a Tesla roof on, and it's going to be somehow a little bit outside of what the codes are. And so I think the law needs to be robust in recognizing its own limitations as well, and that if we can kind of build into it a process that would go through periodic review, then we wouldn't have to have what amounted to almost a 4-month moratorium. We can say, okay, we've thought about the possibility that there's things we haven't thought about. So what can we do to keep that going? And like I mentioned, like I say, about a month ago, if you could have an expert on hand, or...
That's a possibility always the planning board has available to them.
Okay.
For instance, cell towers.
Yes.
They had to have professionals come in for
And-
locating and make
Right.
sure there was no airport interference.
Sure.
And they had to certify that.
And-
they can do the same thing on these types of things.
Just so it's in the record as well, because the other thing I wanted to bring up is about the 5G, that I know the town really, their hand is forced. We have to have it because the FCC says we have to have it. That is a very energy-intensive system. Most of them generate in low, medium, and high band, and most of them in a lot of places in the country, most of them have their own solar panels. So when you're approving the 5G, recognize you're probably approving hundreds or thousands of solar panels that are going to go into that as well. So I just wanted to say that's another thing that is going to be affected by this law, I'm sure. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Tony?
Tony Geis at 202 Crandon Terrace. I think we're dealing with a pretty much emerging technology, exploding actually, into us. And with this, I think the town board very prudently, did a moratorium so we could step back and do it right. And I want to commend the people that were involved in doing the drafting, especially Mary Francis, who led the group very effectively and kept it on time and kept it drafted, utilizing both other town draft laws as well as the NYSERDA standard that they put out. I wouldn't say it's a standard, but a draft of how to put a law together, and meshed them together, which very effectively. And in addition to Mary Francis, Jim Ruddick from the planning board spent a great deal of time, especially getting NYSERDA coming into the other town laws. I think it brings us up to date, but again, it's an emergent technology. Where it'll go from here, I don't know, but it covers a lot of loopholes that were lacking in the other solar law that the town had. And I am in favor of this new draft law, making it a final law. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other in favor?
Once again, I'm in favor of this law as well. Mark Parrott, 2655 Connors Road.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone opposed to this local law? No opposition. Okay. With that, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing and go back into regular session.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to have a public hearing on local law K of 2019, which is the opt-out for solar exemption. Entertain a motion to go into public hearing mode, waive the reading of the legal advertisement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in public hearing mode again. And this, Kevin, you want to explain this?
Well,
Pete brought it up. There's other municipalities that's already done it, other school districts.
Yeah.
Baldwinsville's done it, Lysander's opted out, so go ahead.
Basically, under New York state law, Section 487 of the New York Real Property Tax Law, it allows local school districts and local legislative bodies such as yourself representing municipalities to opt out of what otherwise would be an automatic tax exemption for all solar and wind energy systems and farm waste energy systems. So it's automatic unless the towns, schools, whoever takes some action. The local law before you is being proposed pursuant to Section 487, let me see what it was, 47.8 was it, or 9? I don't see it here. But Section 487, 487.8 of the real property tax law. And it's a little bit longer, but the meat of it is pursuant to and consistent with New York State Real Property Tax Law, Section 487.8, the Town of Van Buren Town Board hereby declares that solar and wind energy systems and farm waste energy systems shall not be exempt from real property taxes within the jurisdiction and geographic boundaries of the Town of Van Buren. That's the meat of what this local law does.
Okay, thank you. There's two ways these could be taxed. It's either through regular assessment, just like a normal house would be, or any improvement on your property, or you could do it by a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. And this board feels that probably the best way is to let the assessor do her job. She's got guidelines that comes from the Real Property Tax Office in Albany on how to assess those, and that leaves it to be the fairest for everybody involved in the town. And the exemptions with pilots, every time an exemption is issued by this board, somebody else in the town pays for it. So we're trying to keep this fair, and solar and these other energy saving systems have a lot of subsidies that come from the state and federal government. So we didn't feel it's fair to local taxpayers to join in those subsidies when they're getting them already at the state, which they're helping to pay for, and at the federal level, which we're helping to pay for. So with that, I'd open it up for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this local law. Andy?
As I spoke before, I think it's very important that we still retain some control over our tax base, given my understanding of what's happening in Massachusetts with the overabundance of solar arrays and farms. And if there's a way that the assessor can help work with that, essentially penalize a farm-based array out in the middle of nowhere and help drive them towards a more industrial location where there's the grids already there to support. So it would seem to me that the town, by taking control, by not issuing pilot and having a case-by-case tax assessment based on the value of the land, and hey, anybody's math is anybody's math. I can do my math this way. Yeah, if I'm sitting on that side of the table, I can do the math that way. But by the fact that you can control the math, I think is very important. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone opposed to this local law? Pete?
Just a couple of comments that I just wanted to clarify. I heard I read the statements that were made by some of the folks over in Lysander, and you've made a kind of similar statement. One thing I would say, that solar is it's an emerging technology. The reason for the incentives that the state and some of the federal government offers is to create a level playing field with fossil fuels, which are right now enabled, facilitated, or subsidized to the tune of about 6% of world GDP, about $6 trillion a year. And that's actually a 2-year-old figure right now. And so in essence, the power systems that we are using, gasoline, natural gas to a certain extent, coal to a certain extent, any of the fossil fuels are, the subsidy for them is basically baked into our economic structure. It actually is approved before the federal government even passes the budget. And so I wanted to note that solar is competing against a system that is very, very expensive, and if we're looking at it like that, that maybe we're, somebody who has a solar array is getting a double benefit, I would say that that other benefit, that already people are getting a benefit in the form of protection of their fossil fuel resources, and just a recognition of how immense the fossil fuel industry is. I worked in it for a while, and I know it's pretty monstrous. It's basically the world economy is oil. And so as someone who's going to put in solar, I don't think I do think, so this is another term, and it's similar to something you just said, an improvement on the house. It's not like a swimming pool. It's not like you dug a hole and you built a swimming pool. And the town recognizes that in the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan, in that removal of such systems is also stipulated. So these are removable improvements, and if we decide to move someplace else, then I could take my ground-based array and move it someplace else. And so I don't know the details of New York State tax law, and I'm just saying that there are some differences between that and some other more permanent improvements that could be made. Thank you.
She has them for both industrial type and residential solar for guidelines. It's
Okay.
provided to her by the state tax office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Anyone else opposed or comments?
I just one small one. The bond for large solar arrays, was there a limit for downsized arrays for removal? I saw on industrial arrays, there was a bond that they had to apply to the town for removal.
Right. 30 years down the road when the life expectancy is over,
Was
right?
there a lower limit on that? That
No.
might be a problem.
For residential, no, I don't believe there was.
Yeah, you might, well, I'm like the mid-size, I'm about mid-size things. You might want to think about mid-size, what is required for bond, because somebody that, say it's larger than something that Pete's considering, just to pick on something.
Yep, but that's not set by the law. That's set application by application, correct?
That's
Counselor?
my understanding,
Right,
yes.
as it comes to
Yeah.
the planning
So
board.
if
yeah.
you're building, like at Cortland, where they have a whole field full of
Right.
solar arrays,
I get it.
that's going to be different than
Sure.
the person who
Absolutely.
has one set of panels going down his yard.
It just seems, if there's not a lower limit, it could be an encumbrance.
Yeah, in residential, I would think neighborhood politics, so to speak, would drive, if it's reached its life expectancy and it's sitting there and it's getting dilapidated, then we have other mechanisms
Right.
within town code we can
Sure.
approach that.
Oh, and there was just one last thing, I'm very sorry. I noticed that the law said no solar arrays in a PUD. So let's talk about the Seneca Golf Course. They have, or they're proposing to have a housing
HOA?
HOA. Now, suppose that HOA doesn't want to just do green space. Suppose that HOA wants to support a solar array for redundancy. It's a burgeoning, forward-thinking thing as we go forward. Because theoretically, a solar array for a PUD could actually, with batteries, become a moneymaker for that PUD. And it just goes back to the, I hope the town board can look at these individual things that are moving forward, because the large solar arrays, which we're addressing, versus powered roofs, there's a lot of holes in between things that are coming down the pike. I just want to make sure that the town board is thinking forward about that, or hopefully.
There again, some of this new stuff coming along can always come before the planning zoning board with variance requests and you know,
Sure the
if
door's
they can
open.
prove their case, certainly they'll give it due consideration.
Yep.
So, anyone else opposed to this?
Actually, I have a comment too.
Okay.
Someone mentioned the issue of taxpayers paying more because of subsidies or grants or whatever, financial assistance for the people who may have done solar arrays or alternate energy. I personally will just mention climate change. We're all paying for it, and I personally, if I can't afford to put up my own solar array, I'd be happy to pay more taxes for my community members who can do that, to support the entire system.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else opposed? Not seeing any more. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing, go back into regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Back in regular session. Item number 4 is adoption of local law K of 2019. And entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
We just had public hearing regarding that. That was the last one we just talked about. So we can discuss that discussion.
One thing, in going through this entire process, we have 3 or 4 pilots already for solar that are in the town. And if we have to do this for every one, then in our budgets, you have to list the revenues separately. If you just leave it to the assessor to do it based on the property, it makes it just a much cleaner. There's not a consideration for this versus a consideration for that. And I did sit down with the assessor, and she laid out all the information she had on how it's got to be assessed based on the type of soils that are being used or covered. And quite honestly, God bless her, she can understand all that stuff. So that's her forte. Let her do it, is my opinion. So.
I would add this, that we have enacted laws on wind power as well as solid fuel devices, outdoor boilers, and we don't treat those any differently than we would this. They're all assessed at fair market value. There are no exemptions.
Okay, any other discussion? I want to thank the committee that worked on this because it's been a long, drawn-out affair, that's for sure. Well, the opting out's not so much, but we, like the other thing is, when you have Lysander that has done it in the Baldwinsville School District, it gets to be a little bit of a task when these companies coming in. Well, who's opted out and who hasn't if you didn't? So it kind of makes this whole community, everybody's opted out in this community for it. So it kind of makes it a little more easy to understand for everyone, so.
And I hope the governor extends the tax benefits and the grants that are scheduled to end.
It drops at the end of the year, 26%.
Yeah.
I've written to my legislators.
I hope you're right.
It could go back up to 30.
What is it now?
It's 30 now.
It's 30 now.
And that was an extension of 3 years from 2016. And there is a proposal right now for an additional 5 years. And, yeah, because the delay here is actually, you know, if I get the exact same solar system and that's run out, that delay will have cost me about $1,200 in lost benefits there. So, yes, I'm very much hoping that gets extended.
Okay, any more comments, discussion on adoption of local law K?
Yeah.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve it.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have to do,
Or roll call, I'm sorry, roll call.
We already had it, right.
Yeah, we already got the motion, I'm sorry. Roll call vote, please, Lynn.
Mrs. Vanderwaal?
Yes.
Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Ms. Dickman?
Yes.
Mr. Dubinsky?
Yes.
Ms. Saban?
yes?
Mr. Sykes?
Yes. Motion carries.
Claude, would it benefit if the town wrote a letter to our county legislatures, letting them know
Well, it's got to
that,
be the state.
Yeah.
well, just that we're in favor of that as well? That maybe we could just let them know that we passed?
Can you get me some information on that?
As far as who to write to, or?
At
No, we
the
know
Albany
what to write
level,
to.
yeah.
Yes, I have.
No, just a letter.
Federal and state, right now, there's considerations. I wrote to, it was a form letter prepared by my solar company that I'm working with.
Mhm.
It went to 3 local people, 2 local people, 1 state.
Can you send me a copy of the letter and the contacts at supervisor@townofvanburen.com?
Sure.
Thanks, Pete.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll get something out.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is set public hearing for 12/17/19 to hear comments on amendment to town's comprehensive plan relative to the regulation of solar energy systems. We're not losing our mind here. This is the same thing we just did earlier tonight. This is a technicality the state places on us. Kevin, you want to explain that?
You have to have 2 public hearings on the comprehensive plan. Don't know why.
So,
So let's
They
do it
don't
again
tell
in
me
2
why,
weeks.
they just passed them in Albany, you know?
Process law.
Is that what that is? Okay. But every other local law is only 1 public hearing.
so to entertain a motion to set the public hearing for 12/17 to hear, have another public hearing on the town's comprehensive plan amendment for
Moved.
regulations.
So moved. Just replay it.
Moved.
There's an idea.
So what would happen if I spoke against this one? Which one would count?
Don't, just don't.
You're going to wash it out, so don't come back.
Don't.
We got somebody that moved it. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The red tape from Albany.
Oh, my goodness.
Item number 6 is the budget transfers per the comptroller's memo. I gotta entertain a motion to do those transfers.
Moved.
I'll make that second.
Any discussion? You see the explanations for all of them. This time of the year, we're winding down to the end of the year, and these are always typical this time of the year, so basically, it's just juggling money that's already in their budget.
To close out the books.
Just to keep everybody
On budget.
on budget, and I believe everybody's going to pretty much be under budget,
Great.
which we want to thank our department heads for. So,
Yeah, they came real close.
we got a motion second, right?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 has been pulled from the agenda tonight. The engineer is working with the developer to get some much-needed paperwork before we can move forward with that. We have not received that, so we will probably have that on the next agenda. I do have a penciled-in number 8, a resolution regarding Town of Geddes use of the salt storage shed, the use agreement for that. Kevin, you want to explain that?
Well, what happened was, in our agreement with Geddes, we have a provision that says that all of their insurance companies that represent them for general liability, auto, umbrella, et cetera, have to provide us with endorsements to their policies indicating that should the policies be canceled, the town of Van Buren would receive 30 days prior written notification of that cancellation. None of the insurance companies are agreeing to do that anymore. We're running into that with developers. We're running into it every time we have a contract now. The insurance companies have all gotten together in a cabal, and they have just decided they're not going to do that anymore. It really puts the municipalities at risk when you do anything with any contractor, any developer, or whatever. You've always tried to shift the liability or responsibility for something that goes wrong onto the people you're contracting with and get it away from your taxpayers. And this is becoming much more difficult. Now, with respect to this particular one, we're dealing with the town of Geddes. They're a municipality. They are indemnifying us and holding us harmless in this agreement. The taxpayers of the town of Geddes are on the hook if anything goes wrong. So if there's cancellation and they don't tell us, even though there's a provision in the contract also that requires Geddes to give us the 30 days prior written notification, if they don't and there's a cancellation, there's no insurance, the town of Geddes will be on the hook for that to the extent of all their taxpayers. So I'm not as concerned about such a situation with a municipality as I would be with a private contractor. But I can't waive it.
Right.
Only you guys.
So I'd entertain a resolution to waive that particular clause in the agreement requiring 30 days notice from the insurance company.
Moved.
Second.
Any more discussion?
No,
Yeah, I think it's a very low risk.
right, we don't have really a choice.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Councilor Committee reports and comments. MF.
Land Use Committee met earlier this evening. We're working again on the property maintenance codes, and we had some discussions with Kevin, the attorney, so we'll get another draft out to everybody and also send a draft to the attorneys to have them look at. Again, we're using the model junk yard, not an auto junk yard, but a junkie yard law that's out there to try and
Clean up.
clean
Or help
up
clean-
our
help clean up.
our code so that we don't have a lot of hoarder situations that we do have in trying to keep the rest of the residents with respectable properties and take care of some of these individual properties that need to be cleaned up. So that's what we're working on now. That's it.
Wendy?
Nothing.
We're meeting tomorrow, which we announced last time, with our highway department, negotiating a contract. We finished with the operating engineers, which is office folks up here and also at Parks and Grounds earlier this year. And this probably will continue for a while, maybe into 2020. But we've been working on it for, 3 months now at least. So we have meetings every 2 or 3 weeks and do a little back and forth on it. So we will continue tomorrow.
That it? Ron?
I too sit on this committee with Mary Frances. We'll do our due diligence on this. We'll take our time, we'll do our homework on it to make sure when we roll it out, it's done and done properly so we can enforce these codes.
Yeah.
Howard?
Some of the code that Mary Frances and Ron spoke of was generated by complaints, and the rest of it was from some of the model laws that the state has, which we're now accessing. So this is going to be a fair and thorough examination of what we're dealing with. Also, on Thursday morning, 7:45, we meet at the Senior Center for their bi-monthly meeting on, this will be a wrap-up for the year-end, but they've had quite a year now. They've done a lot of public celebrations and events, the car shows and so forth and so on. You're all invited to the meeting. It doesn't take much. It's over by 9 usually, and you can find out about what's going on in that area. Okay?
Okay.
Wendy promised to join me.
I did.
We'll see how that goes. She'll be the youngest one there.
It'll be my pleasure.
Yeah, you get the prize.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. First of all, thank you all for coming tonight. It's welcome. Very seldom, other than a couple of regulars, have many in attendance. So we like to think that maybe we're doing something okay and people aren't complaining, but it's always great to have public input. And we certainly appreciate PAC-B, because I think from what I hear in the public anyway, an awful lot of people do watch the meetings to catch up on what's going on in their town through PAC-B. And I think we've tried to be a very responsible board, and we certainly take a lot of time with everything that we do not to rush it, but yet to do it right. And secondly, just thinking of Ken Woods again tomorrow night, being the Christmas season, there is a concert with our community band there tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. And I know that the public is welcome. You don't have to be a senior citizen to go and listen to the concert, so I'm sure they'd be happy to have you come. Thanks. That's it.
It's going to be loud, too.
Yes, it is. It's inside, so.
Okay, there's no highway superintendent. I have nothing. Jason?
I have no comments this evening.
Kevin?
I'm going to need the board for 5 minutes in executive session to confer with council.
Okay. Lynn, you got anything? Citizens' comments? Anyone wish to address the board? Andy?
Just briefly, Howard, thank you for inviting out to Ken Woods, because I think that's an underutilized resource in town. And I really appreciate all the town board's efforts. And Tony, thanks for coming and speaking in front of the town board, because that's the zoning board guy. It's not often that the zoning board guy shows up to speak in front of the town. I
He's the
appreciate
planning
that very
board guy,
much.
too.
Thank you.
Planning also, he's both hats.
Okay, anyone else? With that, I entertain a motion to go into executive session. We don't anticipate any action coming out, and appreciate you coming. You can wait if you wanna.
Let's see if,
This takes 5 minutes, I'll be surprised.
Okay.
okay,
Entertain a motion to go into executive session.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We go into
69.
James.
Okay.
69.